Hey YouTubers, it's me again, Lonnie Clark, Nuts for Art. Thanks for joining me. I want to come online. I know it's been a little while. I like to make my videos when I'm walking because it's easier for me to actually look into the camera when I'm walking. So please forgive me if my eyes distract, but I'll keep trying to look straight at the camera and not my computer right behind it. So I've had this on my mind thinking about courage. And you know, a long time ago, I think I showed you this. My granddaughter gave me this last Christmas. And it's interesting that she gave, you know, she's 5, right? At the time she was 5. And my daughter said she read out all the different kinds of rocks because they had this big pile of these little heart rocks and they wanted to buy me one for Christmas. And she picked, my daughter read out all the different words like hope and love. And she picked out courage. And they said that they gave it to me not because I needed courage, but because I have courage, right? So I thought that was sweet. But I think everybody has courage. And we don't need courage to face the future. What we need is love. And we need generosity and understanding and kindness towards each other. And we need to have a firm hand with people that are abusers. We need to not tolerate that. And that's, in fact, what we've been doing. We've been compromising. And our elected officials have been compromising. Everybody's been like wanting to get along. I've said this a long time ago, that people want peace so badly they're willing to be abused, you know. And I think what we need to do is just not tolerate it. I learned this from Thomas Ackerman. Like, people that are your detractors, anybody who is going to come in and criticize you, get rid of them, because they eventually will tear you down. In fact, when I have not done that, I did get torn down and I did get hurt. When I just allowed people to do mean things to me or talk to me disrespectfully, and yet I kept them in my life, like, oh, well, that's just how they are. No, that's not just how they are. People tell you who they are. And I think that was great advice. That's been one of the best. Thank you, Tom. I love you for that. Well, that's one of the reasons I love you, but you really did help me grow up. And that's why I watch your videos, because you make us think about things in a different way. I think you actually have the luxury. It's kind of interesting. I've thought about this concept too, because as a closet artist, and I don't think I've ever shared much of my art with anybody, I think about Thomas Ackerman like having the luxury of being an artist, and yet it's not a luxury because it's a great risk, because in terms of, quote, risk, because he doesn't know how much artwork he's going to sell. Like he says, he's committed to doing it whether he sells it or not. He just goes and does it, right? I guess that's why I have a closet full of artwork myself, because I just do it. It's like these. I wanted to share with you some little thing that I started doing. I go along, I think I shared this with you. I make these little rocks. I paint them and I put messages on it, or I just like take a rock and paint it like kind of a different design, and I'll leave it on the road for people to have. I call them love rocks. I like doing it. It's like my little moment of Zen. I get up in the morning and I paint a few rocks. I paint a little bit. It usually takes me like a day, and then they're dried out. And then the next day I bring them out on the road. And I like it because it brings people a sense of wonder and surprise, not just inspiration, but it's like, oh, wow, look at that rock. And then the interesting thing is, because I've come across this, do you take it or do you not take it, right? Here in Eugene, Oregon, there's a park called Hendricks Park. If you walk through there, there's fairies, little tiny fairies in the tree. A woman has been in Eugene putting fairies in Hendricks Park for like the last 30 years. She just puts fairies up. When I first saw it, I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't take the fairy. Right. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. But then I found out that people take the fairy and they're kind of like a little prize. Right. And of course, I've never seen a fairy in there again. So that's all right. But I think about these rocks. And I call them little love rocks because I make them with love to give people some good positive energy, like whatever. Because I know along that path, I have walked along that very path many, many times, crying and sobbing and talking to God about why this and why that and how come he can't get it better and why is the world bad and my grandchildren and blah, 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 blah. Like I feel bad for my grandchildren. I feel seriously like my grandchildren have a heavy, actually, yesterday morning, I was actually super angry. I realized we were the first bombed generation. I was thinking about it because I read an article about how the divorce rates are going down. And the baby boomer generation, of which I'm one, I was born in 55, got married and divorced more than any other generation, or so they're saying. But it's probably true. I know I got divorced 4 times. I didn't plan on it. I didn't want to be divorced any of those times. But they were talking about how the millennials are they're getting into relationships slower. They're looking at long-term relationships differently, which I think is awesome because they're actually really developing. I mean, it's like I told my niece, we got into an argument. Like our generation obviously didn't make a lot of good decisions, right? But we were also the very first bombed generation. My generation of people were the first people who were exposed to nuclear contamination on a wide scale. Those of us born after 50, I was 55. So, and what does Dr. Busby say? From 57 to 62, you were the most exposed babies. But I was like, 3 years old living in Los Angeles when Bravo hit. And also living in Los Angeles when Santa Susana, the very first nuclear meltdown, hit. I think, although I lived in Hacienda Heights, which was about 50 miles away, just outside the exclusion, which should have been the exclusion zone. Who knows how much contamination we've had. And our children, we don't know what our grandchildren are going to do either. So we're in this weird zone. It's kind of like what Tom was talking about in this video when I caught up on his videos tonight. Uncertainty and doubt. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future, but there's actually no doubt that there is going to be a future. Now, whether the future manifests itself with human beings in it or not, that's a different issue, right? Our goal as humans, because we want our species, we have this instinct. That's what causes us the pain. We want to thrive. We want to be there. We want our children to be there in 1,000 years. We want us. There's something in us that makes us want to have our species thrive. Right? Not just survive, because survival isn't enough. You don't want to just survive. You want to thrive. That's what art, that's what culture is about. It's about thriving. It's about enjoyment. It's about living your life to the fullest for wherever it is. And that's kind of what I think, like where we need to go. Tom mentioned something in his video today that I watched. I guess it was done a few days ago. Thomas Ackerman, for those of you who are wondering who I'm talking about. He's a YouTuber extraordinaire and philosopher and a magnificent artist. And but he was talking about how, we should expose our stories and talk about our stories, right? But as I was hearing it, it almost made me hurt. Because I don't want to talk about my story. My story hurts me. And I don't want other people knowing about my story because I have a very lurid story. I mean, like my childhood was not happy. My parents weren't great. My siblings, most of them were mean, still are. It's not been an easy path for this one little human. You know what I mean? Like and then because of that pattern of life, like I have this penchant for picking on and trusting the wrong people. Like I think I'm getting over it, actually. I think I'm getting better. And it all comes down to self-love recovery. And I think I talked to you about that a while back when I found Dr. Russ Rosenberg here on YouTube. Again, thank you, YouTube. And that's made a huge difference, the self-love recovery plan. And frankly, I think that's part of my path. Meeting Tom was the self-love recovery plan. Because, and actually, you know what, even like George, Fix It Stupid, he and I had a personal conversation about things that happened in his life. And I hope that he has embraced this self-love recovery, because we can love ourselves and forgive ourselves. No one is free of doing things that are incorrect, and things that we are not proud of. We can leave those attachments and that humiliation and that shame. The point of having those emotions is to help us. I think after, I mean, to be honest, it's been humiliating for me to say I got divorced 4 times, right? It's a hard part for me to have to say. That's not something I want to talk about, but the pain of that humiliation and the suffering that I felt has actually kind of been free for me. It's been freeing, because at a certain point, like, whatever, who cares? You just be yourself anymore, right? And you just, I mean, that's kind of my goal, is to improve my mental capacity for myself and for other people, so that I can be a benefit to other people. Like, I personally believe that the purpose of life is to be of service to each other. And when we come at it from that point of view, there's a lot of beauty no matter where we're at. You can be on a battlefield and still find beautiful things happen. We've heard these many stories. Many soldiers have come home and written magnificent stories about loving, beautiful things that happen in the midst of all this horror and chaos. So that's kind of like the duality of how we live. And the concept, actually, when you think about the concept of duality, even, I mean, especially as Westerners, we think of everything as linear, but I personally believe that there are beings around us at all the times. Like, I think there's how do we say this? Like another presence, another here, another now that we can't see, we can't feel, we can't touch. But I think there's higher beings that move around us at a higher frequency that can see us and can talk to us and whisper in our ears and lay things along our path and motivate us to help us along. Kind of like the good wolf, the black wolf, white wolf story, right? Which wolf do you want to feed? We have those same type. That's what you call a demon, I guess. You know, the ones that you follow that negative doubt. And I think that's part of the uncertainty that Tom talks about. Like, really, we don't know what's out there. We just have these things that we want to choose to believe because that's the thing that makes us feel good, right? So I think, again, that's the whole point of life, is like, what makes you feel good, right? And it's not just like narcissistic. It's about, I think we were built to help each other. That's why it feels good to have a baby, because that baby is so completely dependent on you that, man, it feels good. And they totally love you for it. Like, children those little infants, man, they're like dogs. You know, that's the thing. That's why people like dogs. They're like 2-year-olds. They never grow up. They're always 2. They're always like, woo, no matter how mean you are to me, I'll always love you. You know, we as humans, we get over that at a certain point. You know, I don't know how many of us, it takes a long time. Actually, I don't think we actually get over it. I think we get accustomed. Well, let's see, how do we say this? You put it in a place in your heart when you come, like me, and I think all survivors, you put it in a place in your heart, like on a shelf, so that you don't have to carry it with you all the time, right? But it's always there. It's in your room. It's on your shelf. And that's how our life goes, and that's how things happen in life. Right now, in the history of the United States, there is, I guess, a quote awakening where people are, I mean, that's because the shit's hit the fan so bad. Everybody's got to realize like we're super screwed. Like something's taken over. We don't have like the government we think we have. And there's a whole lot more that we don't know about. And we're on a need to know basis and we don't need to know. And it's pretty bad. And there's nothing but a bunch of showboating going around. Like this whole shit show this week with this. I mean, the interesting thing is this Kavanaugh guy, like, he's exactly like Trump. He's a complete abuser. But you know what? Anybody who looked at his record, he lied under oath. If you pay attention to government at all, he is a monster. And that's why Trader Trump picked him, to be honest. And even that guy, like, it's just a shit show. The oligarchs are like playing us like little fiddles because we just like, we want our desperate little lives. You know, they've busted us. Like students can't get an education without, you know, getting financially broke. People can't get healthy without becoming financially broke. I mean, there's no, you can't, and the way they're setting this up, and let's just be 100% clear in the United States, the Republicans are going to break Social Security, probably, no doubt, by the time I come of age, and it'll make them, it's retribution for them, so that those nasty little stinking hippies can't get their Social Security. And they're going to break Medicare. They're going to break all these systems. But the thing is, when these systems break down, something else will rise from the ashes. And so it's a matter of what's going to rise from the ashes. And if we are of service and of higher mind and refuse to talk their language, that's what Tom referred to that too. Like part of what we have to do is refer to, like that's their paradigm. Their paradigm is to tear us down. Our paradigm is love is greater than fear and happiness is resistance. That's our paradigm. Our paradigm is we're going to be of service to all of humanity for each other and be there for each other. Their paradigm is abuse is normal. We're not going to hold any child perpetrators accountable. We're not going to hold any polluters accountable. We're not going to hold any war profiteers or money changers accountable, because that's their paradigm. That does not have to be our paradigm. The masses, the millions, the billions of us who, yes, are being affected by contamination at a rate that our species can barely keep up with. And we may not be able to keep up with it. We don't know. That's the uncertainty, you know? But do we doubt it's going to happen? No, something's going to change. There's no doubt, right? So I don't know why. I wanted to come on because I've just been feeling like, oh gosh, life is just too sweet to let it destroy us. And we walk around like, oh my God, what's happening in Fukushima? What's happening now in North Carolina and Brunswick? Like those nuclear power plants in Brunswick, they're super screwed. Don't let anybody tell you they're not. Super, super screwed. Hanford is falling apart. They built that with wood from 40, 50, 60 years ago, in the 1960s, the 50s, the 40s. And all they did was use 2x4s. They did not use steel. They did not use concrete. So all of those tunnels, all that bullshit they did up there in Hanford, it's all collapsing, folks. It's a shit show. And we are going to have an earthquake. And they have no intention of closing down the Columbia generating station before it melts down. So we're going to have a shit show in Hanford too. Just like, I mean, most of you probably saw this. We had a, quote, near miss over at San Onofre. What's going to happen when they don't have a near miss? Bye-bye. Bye-bye, all of Southern California. Goodbye, seals. You think we've got a bad problem with the seals now? Wait till you get a load of the nuclear contamination right off the coast of California, right on their doorstep. I mean, they are dumping unprecedented levels of contamination now into rivers, oceans, Trump has unleashed all these oil pipelines that are leaking, and we hear nothing about them anymore. They don't even report on them. See what I'm saying? How easy it is to get into that shit show? That's their paradigm. I mean, not that we don't have to pay attention to it, because we do. But it's part of the self-love recovery program to decide that you're going to love yourself and you're going to enjoy your life, no matter, like what comes along, the big and the small. Like for 2 days, I was really upset because look what my hairdresser did. I don't think I'm going back to her. She cut my hair like 2 different lengths. Like, really? In fact, she cut it in 2 different styles. This side is like straight across. This side is like sort of curvy. So I was freaked out. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to walk around and make it look like it's normal. Just like they're doing with nuclear contamination. This is what I was thinking about. Like the whole thing about normalizing things that aren't normal. What's normal? I guess that kind of goes into that question. What's normal? What's natural, right? Normal is, I guess, what we decide it is. Natural is what happens biologically, I guess. I don't know. I'm grateful for culture. I'm grateful for education. I'm grateful for, I'm really grateful that we get to have this opportunity to reach out to each other in this digital age. When people just choose to do this all day long, bing, 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 bing. It's outrageous. I let my phone die. I actually let it go all the way down and let it die. And I go with it dead for several hours. I've decided I'm just going to leave it dead. I don't even keep it plugged in. I want it to be dead for a while. Just to mess with the NSA. To mess up the Mitch McConnell plan. So that's the weird thing about being a political junkie is like, I know all these people's names. I can identify all of them, almost all of them. I know most of the senators. I know a lot of the people in government. I understand their background. I don't know why I have a proclivity towards this, but I do. Well, you guys, I'm going to end here. I just wanted to put some 2 thoughts in about loving yourselves and forgiving yourself and totally embracing your life. Like, keep getting back up. Refuse to be down. Tap on the top of your head and say, I love and approve of myself. I deeply and completely love and honor myself. I deeply and completely love and honor myself. I deeply and completely love and honor myself. See? Let me have some water. Hold on. After you do tapping, it's good to have a glass of water. Helps your body move stuff. Tapping on the top of your head hits your pineal gland. So there you go. A little tidbit for you to think I'm a kooky kind of woman, which I guess I am, because here I am on YouTube talking to myself, to my 40 viewers. Thank you, 40 viewers. I actually appreciate all 40 of them. I mean, that's what Thomas Ackerman and I decided. Like, the people that come to our channels, those are the ones we want to reach. We want to reach people that like us and appreciate our points of view and want to know, like for me, I want people that want to hear this book. Like, I know not many people, and I hope my reading isn't that hideous, you guys, but I'm going to get through this book. I have this much left. So it's kind of a big book, and I don't read it as often as I used to when I was doing stuff, but I decided I just can't do it all the time because it does bring me down. It's not like I have other people to ping pong off emotions with, I don't. And so I just decided I'm going to do it when I feel like doing it. And that is at least once a week. So I'm going to do a podcast a week and post it up on the podcast. But when that's done, I don't think I'm going to read another book, at least on Spreaker nor on YouTube, for quite a while. Because I think people need to get in the practice of reading their own books. By the way, speaking of books, before I leave, Libby Halevi's book, Yes, I Glow in the Dark, is honestly like a really good book. Like, I'm reading it. I can't wait to get back to it. I interviewed her last week and I didn't even read the book because I haven't had time. So I picked through it. It was it's very amusing and yet sober. It was really a tender book. But it's actually a good read, very fast, hilarious, and personal. It's a very different take on someone's exposure to being in a nuclear meltdown. But I highly recommend it. You can go pick it up on Amazon. I guess I'm a big commercial for Libby Halevi because I love Nuclear Hot Seat. I love her work. And now I understand how she could put together the Nuclear Hot Seat program so professionally, because she is a professional and it shows. And her book shows also that she's a professional. So I'm just going to put that shout out to her because I think it's really great. And the other book that everybody should be reading is What the Nuclear Industry Does Not Want You to Know, and that's by KarlGrossman. Free book, free PDF. It says sample book online because it has to say sample book, but it's the whole 397 pages, I think it is. It's a PDF and you can read it. So now I'll really end here. Put your courage feet on. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you for subscribing and sharing my videos and my thoughts with people. I think it's important for us to lift each other up, and please love yourself, forgive yourself. And sometimes self-forgiveness is a daily act, but when you completely remember that you're rewiring your brain to love yourself, when you were wired to hate yourself, it doesn't come easy. Sometimes you just have to keep repeating it, and eventually it catches up with you. And then all of a sudden you're looking at things differently, and your life prospects, your life outlook, a lot cheerier. You're finding you're able to get over things easier. Life is just so much more loving and beautiful when you love yourself first. So that's why I really encourage everyone to make an extra effort to truly be at peace with yourself, not narcissistically, be of service to others, but genuinely love yourself. Refuse to say anything negative about yourself at all. And that will help you. So, ciao. Get this thing turned off.